turn on the recording and maybe we can get some cameras on. That would be helpful. I have not yet finished completely grading the proposals. So that will happen either, probably tomorrow. I think I'll finish those off and then I'll return them. And then I'll probably schedule meetings with each of the groups, just a short meeting to kind of go over the proposal. Just so that we have a good plan going forward, because of course you're supposed to build on that proposal to then do the next steps in your project. So we'll make sure that that happens. Now, before we go into our topic today, I just want to point out, and I hope you saw my email from yesterday or maybe the before yesterday, and that is because Texas Tech itself is a state organization in Texas. They have to reevaluate all their contracts every, I think, maybe 5 years or something. And of course, our use of Blackboard is a contract with whatever the company is called that does Blackboard. And so at the moment, there's a kind of a process going on of reevaluating how good this learning management system is and what it is that we want from it, what our students, of course, want from it, very importantly, and are there maybe other options that are better, right? Who knows, right? So, but that's going through, and that's why I sent that link out. So if you could please respond to that link. I think it's a one-page survey. It's going to take you maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, depending on how many details of praise or complaint that you have, I guess, for Blackboard. But I think it's important that you have your voices heard, because you're, of course, one of the main users. So it's important that it's good for the faculty, but it's also very important that it's good for the students. If you have any questions about that, just feel free to email me. Right, you can just reply. Just don't reply to all. It'll be a little annoying. The good old reply all problem. All right, so that was kind of my little spiel here. So now let's get into what we're going to talk about today. So within our project, well, we've done the proposal, we've kind of come up with a problem, and now you're at the stage where you're going to go out and where you are going to do basically the discovery part of the process, right? Where you kind of understood what the problem is, then you're going to think about, well, what is it in nature that does similar functions, and then you go out into the literature to find out what it is that how it's being done, so that you then can extract it and do it out. So like the big next step is going to be your annotated bibliography. And to get you started on that, I have a whole bunch of slides, but I think what I'll do, I'll just switch over to my browser, and then we'll try and do it live. If it doesn't work, we can also come back to the slides here, right? But the idea is kind of giving you the tools to find research, right? And because for going forward, right, we want to have good sources, right? We want to have scientific journals, we want to have established books, all that kind of stuff, right? We don't want to have how stuff works kind of type email type sources. So let me switch over to my browser. Where is it hiding? Right here. So you now should see my browser, and what we'll start is right here. This is the main page of the library. It's going to look a little bit different if you go to the Costa Rica part of the library, but this is just the main library. And so now whenever you come here and you're looking for something general, all you have to do, or you have a very specific thing, right? All you have to do is type into this search bar right here. And so we could do biomimicry. Obviously, I've tried this already, so it knows me. And then it searches, and it comes up. Did not figure out to Biom is not going to be useful to us. And so we see now it comes up with 3,362 things within the library, right? So this is not searching everywhere. This is only looking at what is in the library. So this could be online stuff, or this could be hard copy kind of items, but it's only what is accessible to us as members of TTU through the library. And so, of course, going through 3,362 results is kind of useless. You're going to get bored and stop through the way. So that's why we have all these kind of options here on the side. First one would be, for instance, if we're going to say, like, well, we only want to have stuff that's available in the library itself, right, to be hard copies. Of course, for us, that would be completely the wrong thing to do, because these are all things that are in the library in Lubbock, so it doesn't help us very much, right? So maybe, and whenever we kind of hit a filter, we could also get rid of it again. So we'll go back here. Now, things that are probably going to be good for us is anything that's online, because we can easily access this here, right? So we could narrow this down to things that are only accessible online, and we can see we have a whole bunch, right? We still have basically all of them. didn't really narrow us down very much, right? But then we could also kind of look at maybe what it is that we're looking for, right? So we have this material type. And so now you can see there's all kind of different options. There's articles, newsletter articles, dissertation, book chapters, blah, 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 all the way through, right? And we can already see that the majority of what we find are articles. In this case, these are scientific journal articles. These are not something in Newsweek or on somebody's website, right? These are peer-reviewed papers. So that's going to be something very important. Book chapters, good. Ebooks, right? If we kind of look at it, we'll see there's a whole bunch of books that we can have. You can see this one even has open access. Everybody could go to it. But for any of these, right, what we could do, let's take this book here, Biomimicry and Business. Interesting combination. We can do this one right here, because we're actually going to talk about that at some point or another. Just that I saw a cover, right? So we can click on that, and we talked about this a little bit already during the seminar. Most of you are in the seminar as well. But we get all kinds of different kind of details that we can see, right? Gives us the title, the author, publisher, the date, all those kind of things are given to us. And then the important thing for us, of course, is that we want to get access to it. In this case, this is all through O'Reilly Online Learning. Right, so we could click on that, and then it takes us to whoever is giving this, right? So we could go in, we can see, here's the book. We can start, and we can start looking through the book. Right? We'll have the entire thing here. Go to the title page. Not very interesting dedication content. All right, so we could say, like, well, maybe this is the chapter that we're interested in, and we can start reading. Right, so this O'Reilly tool is something that you should really look into. Right, it gives you a whole bunch of books that you could just read online. Now that I think that opened a new one. Right, so this will be getting a book. Very, very straightforward. So these were all books. What more can we do? We could think about, again, we can get rid of books, right? We can think about, we just wanted to have peer-reviewed journal articles right in here, right? So that would give us, so these we could cite them, right? Again, these would send us somewhere directly to a journal, right? So I click here on the online access. It's okay. You'll see that for some journals, they'll only be available for a certain time range, right? So if I want to have this, everything from the 1st of January 2013, I would grab this link. Will take me somewhere. Every now and then you may have to log in. But in this case, like I was already logged in, so you can see, and it will have that entire thing here, right? So maybe we want to have the full text as a PDF, and there we go, right? So we can now start reading this paper. The emergent discipline of biomimicry as a paradigm shift towards design for resilience. I hope this is an older paper, because that doesn't sound very, not a very new, from 2014, right? So this is something that's a little older. I think if you tried to write a paper like that right now, they'd probably tell you that's it's been done. All right, so this was kind of going through here, looking at it, and again, you can go through and filter this by all kinds of stuff, right? I think we'll see this in a couple different ways today, that all these searches that we can do online, there's always a set of filters that we can use. Subject could be a good one too, right? So we can say maybe we're only interested in things that are related to engineering. We just saw the book about finance, right? That would now probably go away. Well, these are all just peer-reviewed journals, so maybe let's get rid of that one again, right? So now we have all kinds of stuff that's now only related to engineering, right? And we could keep on going if we knew what journal titles we're interested in, right? Maybe we're only interested in the journal Applied Sciences, right? Then we cut that down. Again, this is something where I recommend that you kind of play around a little bit to get comfortable in here. Any questions so far? No, everything good. All right. So what happens if you go ahead and you search for something that's not in the library? Let's see if I can, maybe I can just copy and paste the name. I have it somewhere here. Back to our, so basically do a new search. That's not bad. Material science, and then there's a colon. Material science, colon, and we'll look for it. Now we can see it comes up with a whole bunch of things. We can say like, oh, this is great. This is definitely the right title, right? Biological material science, blah, 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 blah. By the authors are correct too. But it says it's $100, right? So that's obviously not what we're looking for. This is an article. This is probably a review article of the book. There's another review. There's an article. What we not said we wanted to have the book, right? So let's go into publication types, and we can say ebooks, and they are not the ones that we're looking for, right? These are all kind of hits that are close, but not ones that are actually the case, right? So that basically means the library does not have access to it, right? So what do we do then? Well, what we do then is we use a concept called document delivery, right down here, also called interlibrary loan. So if we click on that link, then it comes to this page. I briefly showed this page at in this engineering seminar. We hit the sign in button. I should already be signed in, so that shouldn't be that bad. And then we come to this next page, right? It already says, already knows, because I'm logged in, that my pickup location is going to be Costa Rica. There's no sense of me trying to pick it up at the central library or something, right? And then I can go in and I have to decide which of these, what type of request I want to make, right? In this case, it was a book, so I click on book, and then it has all these fields in here. And then we have to fill all those out. Now, as it says up there, right, if we have an ESBN number, then it should do that by itself. We have an ESBN number. No, this is an online one. I'm not sure how that will impact it, but let's copy it in. Do the search, and yes, so it found everything. Otherwise, we have to kind of copy and paste it in. All right. So we have the author and the title, so that's good. And then the preferred format in our case will be electronic, because if it's physical, it's not going to get here by the time we're interested in. And then other than English, not really, because that book only exists in English. Different edition may be fine. Alternate forms, no, right? Because we definitely do not want to have it physical. And then we would submit the request. Now, I'm not going to submit the request, obviously. I don't need this book, but we can do this for books. Where this might be also very important is for journal articles. So just like every other library and any other university, our library subscribes to kind of a catalog of journals that, you know, basically they pay for and they have access to them. It's a little bit like getting a cable bundle or something, you know, a cable package on TV, right? Where you say, I'm going to pay $50 a month, and I get these 10 channels, right? And if I pay a little more, I get some more, but maybe they're not overlapping. And so there's different packages, and different universities have different packages. And so if you're looking for a journal that's not in the package that the TTU library has, then you can go through the same process here. Just instead of going for a book, you'd go for a journal article, and then you give again like all the important details that you can do. And then you would send that out, and then they will look around in their network. The library will look around in their network and try to see if they have that specific article somewhere, and then they'll email it to you, basically, right? So this is something that can work very well. These requests tend to go relatively quick. So often it's less than 24 hours, maybe 2 days, if it's journal articles or stuff that's already electronically available somewhere. But again, make sure that you only want electronic stuff. Now, articles, I don't even think they're gonna, they don't have any physical versions of that anymore, so we don't have to worry there, right? That's all good. All right, so that would give us, this would find us where our additional, if we needed additional articles. Any questions for this one? All right. Then I don't think we need this anymore. I think the next one that I wanted to do is going to go into some of what we call a database, right? So of course, we go back to the main page of the library here. 1 second, right? The one search already is a database, right? It kind of goes through the entire database of the library, but we're not so really interested in what the database of the library is. We really want to know what the overall literature in the world is, right? So especially if we're looking for journal articles in kind of our technical fields, then we can go to one of the biggest databases, and that is the Web of Science. You'll see here there's a whole bunch of other databases that you could use too, but in engineering and the hard sciences, the Web of Science tends to be a really good place to go. Now, very important is that you use this link that is right there to get to the Web of Science. If you just Google Web of Science and get started, then you won't be able to see anything, because this is something that costs money, right? And so if you use this link, then you get funneled through the university library. Again, you might have to log into your TTU account, but you will be in at the very least, right? And then you get somewhere here where it's very similar to what we've seen with the one search, right? It's just going to be a little more detailed. So maybe we'll just do the same thing. Already remembers me, I guess. That's what I checked to see how many more articles there were earlier today. And so what you can see is we have these two boxes, basically. We have the first one that says, where should I search? In this case, we're searching in all fields, or I can decide which one, right? I can say maybe I want it only in the title. Maybe I'm looking for a very specific author, right? Maybe I'm looking for a journal, the journal itself, right? So the publication, maybe it's just a year, all those kind of things I can put in there, right? But for us, let's be very broad at the beginning, and we'll just do the general all fields, right? So if we hit search, then we find 2,101 hits, basically, that we see on this, right? And so if we look, we get this whole list here, right? We're not going to go through all of them, of course, but each of these will basically give us the same level of information at the beginning. It will give us the title of what this article is. It will give us who the authors are. Put everything, right? Those are two authors right here. It will tell us in which journal it was published. In this case, the Journal of Biological Education. It will tell us when it was published, right over here, and it will tell us where we can find it in this journal. Now, this is a little anachronistic, because, of course, it used to be important to know what the page numbers were, and so this is basically the last two numbers here are the page number. The first one is the volume, and then the number here is the edition. All right, so the volume usually is the year, and the edition is if there's multiple editions in the same year. It used to be very important because, of course, we used to get these as actual paper, like a magazine kind of looking kind of thing. Now it's not so important. But we can look into this in a little more detail. If we click into there, then now we get everything a little more detailed. Something you'll see that in any article that you get these days is the DOI. And that is a very specific number for this article, right? So instead of using the volume, the issue, and the pages, like what you're really using is this right here. You also get the abstract of the article, which is a very important piece of information, right? Because basically the title can fit to exactly what it is you're looking for. But then if you read the abstract, right, then from the abstract, you might notice that this is not going at all in the direction that you're interested in, right? So you could just skip over to the next one. Usually where the people are from is not that important, right? I mean, we just have to assume that they're good wherever they are. Something that's very important, though, is over here, and that are these citations. And basically what that is, that means that 3 other journal articles are referring back to this one for information, right? So just like you did in your proposals, right? You put whatever journal, like, author and year there, right? So it's 3 others are linking back to this paper right here, right? Which is not bad because it came out earlier this year, right? So it usually takes a while to get a paper published. Obviously, it takes a while to get it written. So having 3 this early on is not bad. And it also gives you all these the references that are cited within this paper, right? So if I downloaded at the very end, there'd be the references, but I can get them right here, right? And so if I click on that, then I get an interesting set of information, but the more important one is down here, right? So this lists out all the references that this journal article uses, right? All kinds of details on it. I think up here, that kind of is a graphic that shows you what the reference is being used for. I'm not 100% certain how much I trust these metrics because it's basically something that they generate independent from the person who's doing the work. The other thing that you can also see is if you click on the citations, they will give you the list of papers that reference that specific paper, right? So if you're reading a paper and you see like, oh, this is some interesting stuff, I wonder what people have done with it, right? Then you can look at the citations and see what it is being used for further down the line, right? So this is a whole bunch of information that we can get. We can always go back to where we were before, up here with what they call breadcrumbs, right? So suppose the list here. What else? Oh, down here, we'll talk a little bit about the journal. In this case, the Journal of Biological Education. You can find who the publisher is. You can get their website, all those kind of things. And it also gives you what's called the impact factor. And so the impact factor is a metric on how important this journal is. There all kinds of stuff goes in there, like how many people are referencing the journal, how many people are submitting articles, all those kind of things. 1.1 is not bad, it's not great, right? I mean, it's like things like Nature and Science are in the tens or something like that, right? So it's not a bad. All right, so this is all kinds of information that you get from there, but let's go back to the main one, or our main search, right? This was our main search. Again, 2,101 is a large number. We're not going to go through each of them on our own, and that's why we have a whole bunch of filters over here. Well, we could say which years that we want to have, the article types, maybe specific people, and so on and so on. And right on top here, it has kind of a set of filters that are very popular, right? And so one might be highly cited papers, right? That basically means that this is a paper that somebody wrote, and over the last couple of years, a lot of people have said, like, have used it as a reference, right? That usually means that it's an important paper. Now, it could also mean that it's a paper that went horribly wrong, and everybody's writing comments about how bad the paper is, right? That does happen, but usually means it's a very important paper, right? So if we do that, we'd have 28 papers that are kind of important papers to start out, right? So recent advances in biomimicry of structural colors, right? So if that was something you want to do, this is probably a good starting point. Has 285 references, so that's a lot of references, right? That's good for you to kind of see what the field looks like, but it's also being cited by 260 people. And it's 7 years old, so it's not brand new stuff, but we're still pretty good. Just like on the library website, we can also get rid of our additional things. Hot papers, not that important for you guys, but one that's very important here is the review article. And so a review article is always a good place to start, right? So if you are interested, what's this one, right? Design cases for if you're interested in sustainable design, right? Then maybe this would be a good spot. Although it's not a very good, this is not a good review article, it only has 19 references. So maybe that was not a good example, right? But something like this here, right? So this talks about biomimicry in architecture, 120 references, right? So if we go in there, you'd see all these many references that you could go and chase down, right? And if you read the review article, it basically what it does, it goes around and looks at what have people done so far in this research area. This happens very often. These papers come out when people write these papers when they're starting a big new research project. Then the first thing they do is they kind of survey what the landscape looks like. What has already been done, where are there gaps in knowledge, to kind of figure out what they want to do next. And if there isn't a good one out there already, then you can publish that, right? But for you guys, for your project, these review articles are good places to start. Open access just means that everybody can access those. So even if you're not going through the library website, you still be able to see them. But again, the Lubbock Library has a pretty good coverage of journals, so it shouldn't be that bad. So these were all kinds of filters just by the type of thing that we want to see. Now, of course, if we wanted to add more definition to what we're looking for, right, then we could just put in another term here. Adhesion. And then it would just look at papers that are related to text to adhesion, right? So in this case, a lot of things about textiles. Here's one, a medical one, right? And so these would all be in that direction. So if you have a very specific thing that you're looking for a project, you can add that in there. You could also go into more detail in the search one up here, right? So until now we said looking at all fields and not giving anything else, right? So maybe we want to say now that we want to look in all fields and we want to look for I don't know any good journals there. So maybe we want to look for a certain author. I don't know, Mr. Smith, and we'll give you all kinds of people that are Smiths, and so we can search, and then we'll see. Well, there was nobody named Smith who's published anything in biomimicry, right? But so this would be something if you find somebody, and we'll see a person later. Maybe we have somebody who's very has a whole lot of publications, and we can just search what they have and see where they've been. All right, let's go back to our general one here. What else would I wanted to show? Maybe let's go back into one of these publications here. You will see on the top, right? If we want to actually look at the article, we could click on there and it will take us directly to wherever this article is. All right, so we could then read it. In this case, it's open access, so we don't have to go to the library. So it makes it nice and easy. We can see the entire paper here, either as HTML or we can get it as a PDF if we want to read it. All right. Now I think that was the detailed one. So another couple things that are interesting within the Web of Science are the buttons up here. the analyze results and citation report. So if we go to analyze, let's go back to, let's get rid of all these extra parts here. Did you see that? All right, so now we have our full 2000 again. Now if we do analyze results, then it comes up with these nice colored figures basically. But basically what that says is it goes through. The first one that gives us is the Web of Science categories, right? So Web of Science has its, I don't know how many categories, and every journal article that gets published, they go through and decide which of those categories it belongs to, right? So if we look at things that were published within like, you know, where biomimicry comes up, then 335 of the 2000 and whatever that we found would be categorized as material science multidisciplinary, right? Or material science biomaterials, right? So these are all kind of subsections. There's a lot of stuff going on in electrical, electronic engineering, all those kind of things, right? So you can kind of see where the field is. Now for us, one that are interesting is some things that we can look at, right? So we can look at authors, for instance. Right, so we want to see who's important in the field. We could go through here and we can see that, you know, this, I'm not going to try and pronounce that last name, I'm sorry. But this person has 19 articles that were published within this field, right? So it's probably somebody who's somewhat important, right? And so we can see all the different names that come up down here, right? So that'll be one thing. I think for us, let's see, where is the another one that's interesting is that I think it's affiliations. Yeah. Right. If we go to affiliations, so this would be maybe not so important for your project, but maybe if you're interested in studying this, right? So you could see that it seems that the University of Ohio is very active in this area, right? So if you wanted to do this, maybe this is something where you would want to go, right? All these different centers here. Now I didn't check if we show up anywhere. I don't, not within the first group here at least. Let's not check just in case we're at like spot 517 or something. But for the project, one thing that's going to be interesting is going to be finding kind of the journals that are important. And so where are those? Document types, no. Creation, publication titles, right there. What's the next one? Right, so we can see if you were looking for something, right, that is in biomimicry, then like, you know, some of the important journals to look at would be Biomimetics, Proceedings of SPIE. I'm not even sure what SPIE is, but you can look that up, right? And so there's these other ones that we can do. Now this was very general, right? So there's going to be a lot of things, but if we had done a more narrow search, right, we get something a little more detailed. So for me, this is kind of a nice thing to kind of look at to see what types of journals are out there that I might be looking at, right? So you might sometimes it's good just to kind of go to the website. If we now know it's like, you know, the journal called Biomimetics. Actually, we can see is, do we have biomimetics on our I think that's more or less spelled correctly. Biomimetics journal. Let's go there. Right, so sometimes it's good just to go to that specific journal. There we go. Right, and then you can kind of read through what the research is that's going on, right? So this is not targeted very much, but you can kind of see what is happening, right? So somebody did a paper on different methods for assessing tooth color. Okay, I'm not sure how that fits to biomimetics, but right. So there's all these kind of things that you can look at. And again, we have that journal. So if this would be something interesting, right? A fluid-driven loop-type modular soft robot with integrated, actually sounds interesting, right? So we could get the paper, we can read the paper, see if it's interesting to us or if it fits to project, and then that could be a good resource. Right, so this will be all based on that. So this was analyze results. Let's go back to our full thing. Another thing up here that we can see is citation reporting. If we hit that, then basically it takes all those 2,101 papers, and it looks at when they were published, and also of the ones that have been published, how many citations they've been getting in total, right? So we can see the purple, the light purple here is the publication, so we're going up and up and up. For some reason, 2020 was not so good. Maybe that was pandemic related because people couldn't do research. And then for some reason, 2022 didn't look so good either. Those will break off. 2023 looks low, but we're also not yet done with the year, right? So this could move up there. And then the purple line is the number of citations that in total are going out. That's that 43,000 number there, right? So that gives us, and then it gives us down here basically a list of articles that have been published and that have gotten a lot of citations. Right here, it's ordered by citations. So we have this person right here, this paper, single author paper. That's always impressive. So this is bacterial foraging for distributed optimization and control. And you can see it was published in 2002, so 21 years ago. But it's gotten almost 2,000 citations, right? So 2,000 other papers used it as a reference, which is a very large number. Right, and you can see that it kind of starting to kind of slow down a little bit, maybe, right? Not very much, right? So we can say this is probably a very, an important person if you're thinking about biomimicry and control, right? So we click on that, then again, we go in and we see all these different pieces of information. We can get it from the publisher. We will talk about Google Scholar in a second, right? That's another search engine that we can use. Here we can go straight and look it up in Google Scholar if we wanted to. And again, we'll look at that in a second. But another thing that we can do is, now that we found that this person obviously is important, you can see that they have kind of they're a link as well, right? So we could click on this person and we could see all kinds of information about them, right? So they're at Ohio State. Maybe that's the reason why it came up so high in that list. They publish under a different, KM, Kevin M, KM with dots, right? So there's all kinds of different ways to abbreviate this. This can be very important, especially for when you're looking up women, because they might have married at some point and changed their last names. That can be tricky. For people from Latin American countries, this can be important too, because of the whole situation with the two last names. That can be confusing for some. Right, so this is all stuff you can look up here, and then it just kind of goes through and says which of the papers. I know these are all papers where this person is an author on, right? So you can see some of them not so important, some more important. So you could go through and look at all of their stuff if you wanted to. All right, I think that's all I had within the Web of Science. Are there any questions so far? Kind of blowing through this. This is hopefully all being recorded, so if you need to go back and look at a little more details, we'll be able to. So basically, we then have two more things that I want to show you. And the first one is what's called Google Scholar. So this is basically a subsection of Google. It's free, where you can kind of go through and do a similar search as in Web of Science. Now, the big difference between Google Scholar and Web of Science is that Google Scholar is a little more broad. It will pull in more sources than Web of Science. So Web of Science is really almost exclusively peer-reviewed material, which is great because if you get it from there, it's a good source, right? So here within Google, you can get some stuff that's maybe not quite as heavily vetted sometimes. So it can be a little tricky, but we can go in mimicry right there. And so we get a similar setup as we did before, right? We get here all kinds of different people. And we get some big names. This is the book that we were just looking at earlier, Pollen, Biomimicry in Nature. We get the Bennius book here, of course, right? This is books and journal articles. So we get a whole list of things. Actually, we get our good friend again right here, right? So he's also there. But let's find something that's just a regular paper. So let's go straight to there. Maybe this one right here. Right, so if I click on this, then it will take me to wherever this is being published. All right, and so I can look at the abstract. This one, I'm not sure if we have access to. I have on a chip. Let's do this. Lab on a chip. I'm not sure if it complains about two different things, but let's avoid that issue. Lab on a chip. Seems that we have some level of access there. This is just an article, no? Well, doesn't matter, right? So we could, if this is something that you're looking for, then you could go and try and find those things. Let's go back into here, right? So that's three kind of things. You'll see it has a couple kind of helpful little things along the way, right? So you can save this to your account if you're logged in. You can get the citation, right? So you can click there and it will give you kind of the citation. You can export those, or you can just kind of copy and paste them somewhere else. Now, very important, especially in Google here, is that you double check if they are correct, because this is all automated. There's nobody behind the scenes making sure anything is correct, right? So double check if it fits to what you see there, because sometimes there's errors there. Another thing that we can see is everybody who's cited this article, right? So we go in and say like, well, there's all these journals are cited this one before, so it'll be similar to what we saw before. And we can look at all the different people that are on that paper. Now, not everybody has a page here. It auto-generates pages once people have a certain level of engagement, or if they do it themselves. But those are, again, things we can find. So if we go back to our friend here, maybe, right, so we can see this is what he looks like, or this is probably what he looked like about 20 years ago. It's often the case. And then we can see all these different papers that he's been involved with, right? And so a lot of them have some pretty good citation numbers. Seems that he is into optimization, right? So that might be interesting for some of you. And you can see that he's starting to slow down a little bit in his production, which is also very normal. Also, another thing that's interesting is you get all of the people, or not all the people, but like the main people that this person is published together with, right? So you could look at those. Another interesting thing to look at is if we go back to the page here, right? So we can also get anything that's related to this very specific article, right? So it'll be kind of the Amazon version of, or the Google Scholar version of, you might also like kind of a thing, right? From Amazon or from Netflix or whatever. This all versions thing here can be very helpful. So if you find that this paper that we don't have access directly to it, sometimes all it takes is hitting kind of the all versions button. And so this one you can see is at the publishing house, so if we don't have access, we're not going to find it there. But sometimes when you scroll down, you'll see that it is somebody's direct website or something like that, right? Or maybe it's the university website where the people work, and sometimes you get them on that one for free. So I have no idea what Go Gale is, for instance, here. Let's see. Right, so this might be, in this case, it didn't work, but sometimes you can get access to journal articles that are behind a paywall, but also are outside paywalls. There's a fairly robust discussion within academia about the whole idea of putting articles behind a paywall, because it's, you know, we're kind of doing the research to make the world a better place. And if we say, well, if you're at a fancy US university, then you can know about this, but if you're somewhere in the third world in a kind of very, like, you know, in a university that doesn't have the money to subscribe all these articles, then you can't see it, right? And some universities are basically saying that anything that gets published by their faculty has to be open access. And so either it's open access through the publisher, or sometimes they will just basically pirate the papers and stick them onto the university websites, right? There's obviously big fights going on about this. All right, but this is kind of the things that Google Scholar can do for you. Of course, there's all kinds of things that you can set, right? We're in this group, but one thing that often helps is to kind of set a range, right? So maybe we only want to have from 2010 to 2020, and we can do that, right? That kind of narrows it down a little bit. All those kind of things we can do. These are kind of the standard set of search tools. All right, then I only have one thing left before I give you some assignments and then let you go. But the one thing that I want you to remember, because I'm pretty sure you've already seen this before, is to remember that when you cite these, you have to use a certain format for citations, right? And so some students struggle with this, and that is one resource that you can use is called Scribr, right? And you might have already used this in high school, or maybe some other classes are pointing this to you. But basically what this does is that it will create a citation for you, right? And you can see here, all you have to do is find the title, the URL, or whatever, and it will try and find that paper for you, right? So if we maybe go back into here and we say, this looks like a paper, so let's copy the name and go back to Scribr, stick that in there, and then let it look that it finds several different ones. So I think this looks like the one, Eid and Gosh. Let's see, Eid and Gosh. Yep, that's the right one. So right, we could choose this one, and then we'll create this nice, perfectly formatted version for us. So we just copy and paste, tell us how to use it within the text, either as parentheses or kind of in the narrative, right? If like as Eid and Gosh 2011 say, kind of a thing, right? We can put there, and then you can even set what the format is, right? So I could go back up here and say, well, maybe I don't want APA, maybe I'm all about AMA. And maybe I'm writing all this because I'm not changing anything. I'm writing all this in Calibri 11. And maybe I can even say I'm writing it in Word. Save my changes. I'm not sure if it automatically updates the one that we have. Let's see. Or maybe it will just stop, not get in there. There we go. Right, you can see it automatically updated what it looks like. Now, the nice thing you'll see is that it automatically saves whatever you look for. So if I now look for something else, right? Then it doesn't forget what you looked for before. Right, so now we have those two there. I think it holds it for a month unless you sign in and create an account and all that kind of stuff. Right, but that certainly is helpful for you. It has all there. Again, all you would have to do is copy and paste. If you're using, what do we have now? AMA, I think, right? Yeah, AMA 11th edition. All right, so that's I think, to me, this is all very helpful. And you could put it into other types of citation kind of reference systems too, if you wanted to. All right, questions about Scribber. I think we're probably going to look at this a little bit more in the seminar at some point. Practice it a little bit. All right. If there are no more questions, then let me do another switcheroo. Go back to my PowerPoint. There we go. And actually, that's go. Okay, that's also an option. Let me just go down, because most of the presentation that I'll post is basically what we just did, just with maybe some other topics on there. Let me now try and share again. Oh, I have to, sorry, I have to go into presentation mode, then share. Very specific. And I want to share. And right now, started, there we go. All right. So this is your next big part of the project. It's the annotated bibliography. It is due on October 24th. So you have a little bit of time. There is a spreadsheet that you basically have to fill out. And you can look through that spreadsheet. We'll look through it together as well. Not today, but other day. And so basically what you have to fill out all the parts there. And the minimum requirements are basically that you have at least 5 keywords and 10 kind of articles that you're referencing to. The table should be filled out completely, right? So don't leave stuff open. And the references must be from reputable sources, right? So it can't just be, a general news article or something like that, right? That was fine for the proposal, but for the annotated bibliography, it has to be actual references, right? So it'd be peer-reviewed papers, books, government reports, those kind of things, right? So if you're not certain about something, just let me know and we can look at it. Usually, if it's a journal article, then it's usually is good. If you found it through the Web of Science, then it's usually good, right? Because that only links to those kind of things. All right, so that's the big project to be working on, and then I have an assignment that you can start working on right now if you want to, and that is our assignment number 5. And this is now something that's individual, so no group project this week. And I want you to go into any of the Web of Science here. I specified it, and look for bio-inspired and energy. And then you probably want to narrow it down a little bit. Maybe it's something that you're interested in. And then I want you to grab one article that you think might be interesting, and then I want you to prepare an annotation, like 100 to 150 words. Basically, it's a summary of the main points of the article. And then, very importantly, I want you to give me a description of the journal scope. Right? So not of the article, but of the journal. Right? Again, students tend to struggle with the idea of a journal and an article a little bit. Right? So I think the problem for most of you is that there's not very many paper magazines around anymore, right? So if you think back to when you were very small, maybe there was something that is called Time Magazine or something that were around, right? So this is the same idea with these scientific journals, right? It's just that they're not Time Magazine, but they're something else, right? The big ones, they're Nature, Science, Advances in Water Resources, right? That was one of the ones that I used to publish in, right? So those are all things, those are journals. And so they come out, they gather articles from authors, right? If you're an author, you send in your article, say, I think this is great stuff. They'll send it to some other scientists to have a look at it. They'll say, this is great stuff, publish it. Or more likely, they say, this is okay, but you need to change this, this, and this, right? So you go back and forth until it's the right way. But then they gather together and then they publish it. But it used to be, of course, that they printed it and you would get something that looked just like, a regular magazine looks like. And that's the journal, right? So that's the scope that I would want you to look for. And maybe we can, once we finish talking here, we'll just go back to one of the sites that we're just on, and we can kind of look at where the scope would be. Then I want you to include the article's citation and attach the article as a PDF. And all this is due on Tuesday, the 10th of October, so next week. Any questions about this? About this assignment? Now, I know there was a question in the chat, and that was, can you give us an example so we can guide our format with that? Can you be a little more specific on what your question is? That was Jimena asked that question. Trying to find the unmute button.
Yes.
Yes. So what is it? What was your question?
Oh yeah, that I wanted to see like an example, but I was talking
Of
to
what?
Lori and she's going to like explain to me like the format. That was my question.
Of what format of what?
Like of the annotated bibliography, because I had another class that
Okay.
we have to put like some margins like specifically, and I don't know.
For the assignment, I don't have.
Okay.
Right, for this homework assignment, it's really what this says, right? Just write those 100 to 150 words and kind of the little extra pieces of information. The one for the project has a very clear format, right? It has that spreadsheet that you're going to fill in.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Very good. All right, then scope of the journal, just because I just remembered that people tend to have some issues there. Where is my, there we go. So if we go back, do we have any of them open? Here, for instance, right? That was one of the articles that we were just looking at. We try to find kind of the landing page for this journal, right? So this will be nanomaterials, and it has all kinds of information, right? It first talks about how great it is, all those kind of things. And it is quite good. 5.3 is a pretty good impact factor. And it will tell who's the publisher, right? The publisher is MDPI. But almost all of them will have kind of a list of things that are important, right? One that's, of course, very important is topics, right? So what are the things that get published in this journal? But then also for us important, of course, is the aims and the scope. And so you can see down here, right? The scope is, in this case, nanomaterials, are materials with typical size features. They're very small, blah, 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 right? And so following things are things that we might be interested in, right? And so those are the things, right? That's the scope. So if you have your article, make sure that you find what the name of the journal is, and then you can find the details of the scope. If you have questions there, just let me know, and I can guide you through that. Any more questions? Then I would recommend that you start working on this, because next Tuesday will come around fast. You have an extra 20 minutes-ish to work on this. So I will let you go for the day, and I will talk to you. And I think I mentioned everything. So let me just double check real quick that I don't forget anything. We said the assignment and we said the, yeah. All right, then I can actually let you go. And I will see all of you next Thursday, 2 days from now.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, sir. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, teacher.